Hi, I'm Dan Sherwood. I'm from Philadelphia. I work as a speech pathologist in a hospital as well as in an ENT clinic as a voice therapist. I've been looking forward to training with Mike for the last several years because of all the things I've read about him and from reading his own work through his publications and his website over the years. So I've been looking forward to this opportunity quite a bit. This whole process has been an eye-opener as well as a breath opener for me. It certainly has reminded me of some things I already knew about myself and also given me more clarity of vision vis-a-vis my personal and professional goals. We breathe to stay alive, but we also breathe to be alive, to live. The breath of life might perhaps be best expressed as the breath of living. That has been a big take-home message for me from this experience. It is surprising how much we can be held back by suboptimal breathing patterns. Another message I've been able to begin accepting is that it is okay for me to be myself, to be human. A fallible human being who doesn't have to get things right all the time or carry himself in a rigid professional manner all the time. This is Mike's home. It's not military school, and he is sharing himself. It's okay for me to do the same. Breathing and being is not a simple right or wrong process. There is no right or wrong. There is my own internal experience and sensation and how it guides me. We all want to be the best we can be, and we need to be able to give ourselves permission to do just that. I often find that I often hold myself back. This can't do any favors for my own healthful breathing. Does less than optimal breathing play a role in less than optimal living? I can see a strong connection. I am now more aware of my own holdings and bracings that most likely contribute to my various chronic injuries, aches, and pains. This work helps me open that up and experience and feel more of what I think my true self is, or should be. I know I will not wind up a statistic, someone with a bunch of medical diagnoses that show correlation to dysfunctional breathing. I think we're all in a process of becoming. I feel myself in that no man's land between psyche and soma as I discover my full breath and full self, slowly but surely. To fully breathe helps me access more of myself. It isn't necessarily something I have to let out for the world to see, at least not at this particular juncture, but it helps me realize what is possible. This is a personal experience of letting go and letting natural things happen naturally. I didn't start this training as a sympathetically dominant person, but that doesn't mean I didn't come with my own set of issues that held me back. And that I have now gotten a better glimpse of through the various physical releases that we do, and just through conversations with a teacher whose insight and genuine caring are an inspiration. I was already fairly well read as a student of the breath as far as physiologic principles and some ideas of various ways to facilitate more healthful breathing. But now it was time for direct experiential learning. I feel that I can be a much more well-rounded clinician in my own field because I have now been there and done that, rather than just having a collegial relationship with breathing work. What I have experienced with Mike is an accessible method of opening up, not only in my own breathing mechanism, but also more of my personal authenticity How can the two be separate? A lot of psychology comes into play when you start working with breathing. I'm as guilty as anyone else in being constantly wrapped up in my head in all the machinations of daily professional goings-on. What goes on in the body, however, is equally, if not more important, especially in terms of my awareness, rather than the thoughts, plans, ideas, etc. that tend to race through my head. I have been so accustomed to acquiring continuing education for the benefit of others that I have sometimes forgotten the breathing pause and considered myself. Then again, as a fan of Nietzschean philosophy, I believe in being an example of the things I espouse, to practice what I preach. This training has allowed me to put myself at the front of the proverbial line and experience what is necessary. I cannot pass on to others what has not made a significant difference in my own soma, not if I want to pass myself off as an authentic, genuine clinician or human being. We all have a various collection of selves we present to the world in terms of the roles we play in our lives: friend, sibling, co-worker, student, teacher, parent, etc. Each role demands adjustments in how we present ourselves: tone of voice, use of language, display of humility or authority ad infinitum. But I have been guided to think about how I present myself to myself. This has occurred naturally. It's not a dictate of the training. My breathing pattern and habits have always been fairly healthful, but of course with plenty of room for improvement and development, especially if I want to claim to be a therapist who can guide others. However, my personal experience with this work tells me very strongly that breathing and our own personal psychology can't be easily separated. And why should they be? I have discovered more and more of my own ability to let go, to allow, to not focus so much on doing something right, but to explore, sense, appreciate. As a student of somatic work myself, I have learned to appreciate how one's life experiences influence his or her practice of whatever helping discipline they're involved in. Mike's own life experiences are clearly brought to bear in his teaching and coaching. And since Mike's path has not been the common circumscribed American life, he offers more than I could have expected. And the benefits are mine. For me, in some ways, the breathing mechanics work is the easy part. It is what a full, free breathing pattern can do for your real whole self that inspires me. How I feel internally is expressed externally, whether I mean to do so or not. I've always been one of those people who wears his heart on his sleeve, but I now realize that I also wear it on my spine, shoulders, my neck. I feel like I've been lucky as a bodily arts practitioner that my own patients and clients have not bothered to recognize that. But now I have a new arsenal of self-help ideas and techniques to get myself out of some of the habitual patterns that hold me back physically, perhaps psychologically and socially as well. It's a challenge, a process, but sometimes we need that objective set of eyes and intuition that helps us see ourselves honestly. I've had that experience working with Mike. That is what his own life experience, training, and background have given him the ability to do. If I had not come here and done this training, I may not have been able to find the ability to break further away from my self-imposed limitations and become the best me I can be. One of the biggest challenges is to let go and allow the breathing process to unfold during the various exercises and explorations. I have learned to be a bit more honest with myself throughout this training, to not focus on gaining someone else's approval as much as enjoying my own experience and learning from it. The work at the gym was especially helpful on at least 2 levels. It reminded me that there is more than one definition of the word exercise. Also, it was a great rib opening experience to use weights and weight machines in new ways, to open the costal spaces and allow more room for breathing that isn't utilized as much as it probably should be. It's surprising sometimes at how stiffly or tightly we hold ourselves without knowing it. For me especially, when lifting weights, I know that the way we breathe while doing resistance training can either support or impede what we're doing. I'm just as prone as anyone else to Thomas Hanna's sensory motor amnesia concept. There are muscular holdings and tightnesses that I have difficulty sensing, but are quite apparent visually. They can creep up on you. The work with Mike brings me to a new level of understanding of myself, first and foremost. But it also is a great reminder of how many people are likely going through their lives with unnecessary, unsensed limitations of breath and movement and range of motion in muscles and joints, and a general decrease in the fullness of life because of lack of somatic awareness. Some of the breathing skills and movements to elicit and enhance reflexive inspiration gave me what I might describe only as a true Zen experience, especially with regard to stress relief. Some of the movements involved such a mental focus that I found it to be nearly impossible to have my thoughts invaded by the usual mundane intrusions of everyday worries. I encourage anyone to not underestimate the value of these simple movements. This work puts you into yourself more than you might be expecting. But Mike reads you well, and he knows what you need. I didn't know exactly what to expect when I got here, and I'm sure others' experience will be different from mine, but I do know that Mike's optimal breathing work is a doorway to whole body, whole person wellness and healthy self-exploration. I'm a more complete person for having had this experience.